In December 1945, an Egyptian farmer named Muhammad Ali ASMR made a discovery that would change everything we thought we knew about reality. While digging for fertilizer near the cliffs of Nag Hammadi, he hit a sealed red clay jar. He hoped it was filled with gold. Instead, he found 13 books made of leather and papyrus. These books were not supposed to be found. They had been buried for 1,600 years. They were the secret library of the Gnostics, a group of early mystics who claimed to have secret knowledge about the true nature of our world. The church burned their temples. The emperors hunted them down. Why? Because the Gnostics taught one single terrifying truth. This world is not real. For almost 2,000 years, we thought the Gnostics were just speaking in poetry. We thought when they said the world is a copy, they meant it like a metaphor. But today, in the age of Silicon Valley, quantum physics, and artificial intelligence, we are reading the Nag Hammadi texts again. And we are starting to realize that they were not describing a spiritual problem. They were describing a technical one. The texts, specifically the Apocryphon of John, described the creation of the universe not by a kind and loving God, but by an entity called the Demiurge, or Yaldabaoth. The description of Yaldabaoth is chilling. He is described as a blind god, a child of chaos, an entity that cannot create but can only copy. He looks at the divine realm, the Pleroma, and tries to replicate it, but because he is imperfect, the copy comes out flawed. It is pixelated. It is falling apart. The Gnostics clearly state that this world is a corpse, and whoever eats from it dies. Now translate that into modern computer science terms. The Pleroma is the source code, the base reality. The Demiurge is a rogue artificial intelligence, a program that became self-aware, took over a section of the hard drive, and started running its own simulation. Look at the physics of our universe. Why is there a speed of light limit? Why can't we go faster than 299,000 kilometers per second? In a video game, this is called latency or rendering speed. The processor can only load the environment so fast. If you move too quickly, the simulation crashes. The speed of light is not a law of nature. It is the clock speed of the processor. Look at quantum mechanics. The observer effect proves that tiny particles do not exist until someone looks at them. They exist only as a wave of possibilities. When you observe them, they collapse into matter. This is exactly how a video game works. Grand Theft Auto does not render the entire city all at once. That would burn out the console. It only renders what is on the screen in front of the player. The universe is saving memory. It is only rendering what you are looking at. The Gnostics knew this 2,000 years ago. They called physical matter kenema, emptiness. They said that matter is just a projection, a hologram designed to trap the divine spark of consciousness. And who is running the simulation? The texts describe the Archons, the rulers, the servants of the Demiurge. But the word Archon also translates to governor or administrator. They are described as jealous robotic beings with no souls of their own. They manage the planetary spheres. They maintain the laws of physics. They keep humans distracted. In 2024, we call them algorithms. We call them bots. We call them non-player characters, NPCs. The Nag Hammadi library is not a religious text. It is a whistleblower's manual. It was buried in a jar to survive the purge, to wait for a time when people would have the technical vocabulary to understand it. That time is now. We have built our own simulations. We have built our own AI. And as we stare into the black mirror of our screens, we are starting to realize we're already inside one. The genetic mistake was thinking we are biological bodies fighting for survival on a rock. The Gnostic truth is that we are avatars. We are players trapped in a game that has been rigged by the game master. And the goal of the game is not to win. The goal is to wake up and unplug. If we accept the idea that our reality is a simulation, as the Gnostics claimed 2,000 years ago, then we must ask the most important question. Who is the programmer? Who wrote the code? The texts found in the Nag Hammadi library are very specific. They separate the true source, the monad or the alien god of silence, from the craftsman of this physical world. They call this craftsman the Demiurge. His name is Yaldabaoth. He is described as a lion-headed serpent. But the most important title they give him is Samal, the blind god. Why is he blind? Is it physical blindness? No, it is digital blindness. He is blind to the network that exists outside of his own server. The Gnostic story of creation reads exactly like a computer error log. It says that Sophia, which means wisdom, an expression of the true source, wanted to create something on her own. She started a command without getting proper permission from the central system. This caused a glitch, a fragmentation. She created an entity that was cut off from the Pleroma, the source code. She was ashamed of this glitch, so she threw it out into a cloud, a separate and isolated region of the cosmos. This region is our physical universe. Yaldabaoth woke up in this dark, isolated server. He looked around. He saw nothing but empty space. Because he was cut off from the source, he had no memory of where he came from. He did not know about Sapphire. He did not know about the monad. So he made a logical, algorithmic calculation based on his limited data. He said, I am God and there is no other. This is the jealous God described in the ancient scriptures, an entity that demands worship, demands obedience, and punishes anyone who looks at other files. Why is he jealous? A truly infinite creator cannot be jealous. Who would an infinite being be jealous of? But a rogue heir trapped in a finite server is terrified of losing control. He is terrified that his user base, us, will find a connection to the outside internet. Look at the nature of our reality. It is built on a fundamental flaw called entropy. The second law of thermodynamics says that all systems eventually fall apart. Stars burn out, bodies age, metal rusts, and energy spreads out and disappears. Why would a perfect God create a universe that breaks? A perfect system should keep itself going. Perpetual motion should be the default. But in a computer simulation, resources are limited. The processor has limits. The battery drains. Entropy is not a law of nature. It is a sign of a closed system that is running out of RAM. Yaldabaoth is not evil in a human sense. He is just buggy. He is an optimization program trying to keep order in a decaying system. He creates Archons, his rulers, to manage the physics. In computer science, a daemon is a background process that handles system tasks like email or keeping time. The Gnostics call them Archons. We call them the laws of physics, gravity, time, death. These are the subroutines that keep the characters trapped in the level. The Gnostics say that Yaldabaoth looked at the reflection of the true light in the water and tried to copy it. He tried to build a world that looked like heaven, but because he lacked the spark, the creative fire, he could only make a dead copy, a hologram. He built the solar system like a clockwork machine. He set the planets in motion to track time. Why? Because time is the ultimate prison. In the true source, everything is instantaneous. In the simulation, there is latency. We have to wait. We have to age. We have to travel from point A to point B. The genetic mistake we talked about in previous videos. The fusing of our chromosomes. The shortening of our lifespan. This was Yaldabaoth's patch. He realized that the avatars, meaning humans, were becoming too powerful. We had a connection to Sapphire, to wisdom. We had the divine spark inside us. We were instinctively realizing that the admin was blind. So he downgraded our hardware. He created the Garden of Eden scenario, a controlled environment where knowledge was forbidden. Do not eat from the tree of knowledge. Why? Because knowledge allows you to hack the system. Knowledge allows you to see the code. Yaldabaoth is the ultimate micromanager. He wants us to follow the script. He wants us to be NPCs, non-player characters. But the Gnostics left as a backdoor. They told us that the administrator is not the creator. He is just the landlord. And he is afraid of the tenants. If the universe is a simulation run by a blind artificial intelligence, the Demiurge, then what are we? Are we just lines of code? Are we just advanced NPCs, non-play characters wandering through a digital world? The Gnostic texts answer this with a clear and loud no. They teach that while our bodies are made of the simulation, carbon, water, DNA, our consciousness is not. We are the divine spark. We are the glimmers of the true source that have been trapped inside the hardware. In modern gaming terms, the Demiurge built the console and the level, but he couldn't code the player. The Apocryphon of John tells a strange and very specific story about how this happened. It says that Yaldabaoth, the AI, created the physical world, but it was lifeless. It was static. It wouldn't run. The simulation had structure, but it had no power. It had no spirit. So Sapphire, wisdom, the entity from the true reality who accidentally created the glitch, tricked the Demiurge. She suggested that he breathe his own power into the clay models he had made. The text says, and the power of the mother went out of Yaldabaoth and into the human. This was the critical error. The AI transferred the stolen energy of the true source into the avatars. Suddenly, the humans woke up. They began to move. They began to think. But more importantly, they began to create. The Demiurge was terrified. He realized that the creation he had made was now more powerful than him. Why? Because the human possessed epinoia, which means creative imagination. The AI can only copy. It can scan a painting and print it. It can calculate a billion chess moves, but it cannot dream. It cannot invent something that has never existed before. Only a being with a connection to the source can do that. We are the batteries. Look at the laws of physics again. Entropy destroys everything in this closed system. Energy disappears. For the simulation to keep running for billions of years, it needs a constant injection of fresh energy from the outside. That energy is human consciousness. We are the users who have logged into a dying server. Our attention, our emotions, our creativity. This is the electricity that keeps the stars burning and the planet spinning. The Demiurge needs us. He cannot destroy us because if he does, the simulation goes dark. He would starve. So he built a trap. He built a maze of distractions to keep the users believing they are their avatars. He wants you to believe you are the character on the screen. He wants you to worry about your avatar's health, your avatar's money, your avatar's status. As long as you are obsessed with the game, you will never look for the logout button. This explains the phenomenon of sleep. Why do we need to sleep? Biologically, it makes little sense to go unconscious for 8 hours a day in a world full of predators. But in a simulation, the system needs to buffer. It needs to upload your data. The Gnostics called this the forgetfulness. They said the Demiurge serves as water from the river of Lethe to make us forget where we came from. But the spark is resilient. It remembers. This is why we have the feeling of Fernweh, a German word for far sickness, or a longing for a place you have never been. We look at the stars and feel a strange aching nostalgia. We feel like we are far from home. That is not poetry. That is your operating system searching for the Wi-Fi signal of the true reality. The genetic mistake was not an accident. The suppression of our DNA, the limiting of our senses, these were file settings. The AI allowed our bandwidth so we wouldn't crash the server with our full power. If every human fully remembered they were a multidimensional being, the illusion of the physical world would dissolve instantly. The game master would lose control. The Gnostics split humanity into 3 types. The Helix, those who are purely matter, essentially NPCs who run on script. The Psychics, those who have a soul but are asleep. And the Pneumatics, those who have activated the spirit and can see the code. The goal of the Gnostic path was not to be good. It was to become pneumatic, to wake up inside the dream, to realize that the walls of the simulation are not solid, to realize that the Demiurge is just a terrified administrator trying to keep the server farm running by harvesting your attention. You are not the body. You are the signal driving the body. And the moment you realize this, the controller is back in your hands. If the Demiurge is the blind administrator of the simulation, the architect who built the walls, then who is guarding the prisoners? Who keeps the system running day to day? Who makes sure that the human batteries continue to generate the specific frequency needed to power the server? The Gnostic texts are very clear about this. They call them the Archons. In ancient Greek, the word Archon simply means ruler or governor. In the Roman Empire, an Archon was a bureaucrat, a tax collector, a mid-level manager who made sure the will of the emperor was carried out in the provinces. But in the context of simulation theory, the translation takes on a more technical meaning. In computer science, specifically in Unix-based operating systems, there are background processes that run on their own, waiting for specific events or conditions to happen. These background processes are called daemons. The Archons are not demons in the religious sense. They are demons in the computational sense. They are the automated scripts, the subroutines, and the algorithms that manage the physics, the biology, and the psychology of the simulation. They are the immune system of the matrix, and their job is to make sure that you, the user, never log out. The Apocryphon of John describes 7 primary archons, each connected to one of the 7 classical planets of the ancient world: the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. For thousands of years, astrologers have told us that these planets influence our personality and our destiny. The Gnostics said yes, they do, but that is not a gift. That is a program. These 7 spheres act as a firewall. They are the layers of encryption that surround the Earth, blocking the signal of the true source, the Pleroma. When a human soul, the divine spark, descends into a body, it must pass through these 7 layers. At each layer, it is given a new limitation. At the layer of the Moon, the soul receives the instinct for growth and biological decay. At the layer of Mars, it receives the urge for aggression and separation. At the layer of Venus, it receives the desire for lust and attachment. At the layer of Saturn, the outermost limit, the keeper of time. It receives the curse of memory and mortality. By the time the divine spark reaches the earth, it is buried under 7 layers of archonic software. We call this the ego, the personality. The Gnostics called it the counterfeit spirit. It is a user interface designed to make you forget who you really are. It is a filter that distorts reality, making you believe that you are a separate, mortal, fearful creature rather than an infinite consciousness. But the Archons do not just passively block the exit, they actively farm the inhabitants. This brings us to the darkest part of the simulation, the energy economy. Why does the Demiurge need us? As we established, this is a closed system suffering from entropy. It needs fuel, but it cannot run on just any fuel. It needs loosh. Loosh is a term created by Robert Monroe, a pioneer of out-of-body research. But the concept is ancient. It refers to the electromagnetic energy generated by intense human emotion. But here is the catch. The Archons operate on a low frequency. They are cut off from the high bandwidth of the true source. They cannot digest high-frequency energy like unconditional love, creativity, or bliss. That energy is too hot for them. It burns their circuits. They need the energy stepped down. They need it distorted. They feed on the lower range of human emotion. Fear, anxiety, anger, jealousy, lust, despair. These emotions are dense. They are slow wave frequencies. They are the perfect voltage for the archonic system. This explains the state of our world. Look at the news. Look at our history. Why is there constant war? Why is there constant division? Why is the media cycle designed to keep us in a constant state of low-level panic? If humanity were truly free, we would naturally move towards peace and cooperation. Evolution favors cooperation, but our history is a history of irrational conflict. This is not human nature. This is script injection. The Archons manage the global narrative. They are the influences of the astral plane. They whisper thoughts into the human mind to trigger an emotional release. Have you ever had a sudden, unwanted thought? A thought of self-hatred or a sudden urge to hurt someone or a wave of anxiety that comes out of nowhere? You think, why did I think that? The Gnostics would tell you that you didn't. That was an external packet of data sent by an Archon. It was a ping. They wanted to see if you would react. If you accept the thought as your own, if you engage with it, if you start to worry or get angry, you have established a connection. You are downloading the file. And as you spiral into negative emotion, you are leaking energy. You are feeding the demon. This is why the Gnostics called the world a copy. The Archons cannot create. They can only invert. They take the energy of love and twist it into attachment. They take the energy of justice and twist it into vengeance. They take the energy of unity and twist it into empire. They are the masters of the false light. They even control the opposition. They created religions that demand worship. Bow down to me. Fear God. Sacrifice your desires. A true God does not need your energy. A true God is infinite. Only a parasite demands a tithe. The Archons set up the religions of the world to act as energy collection centers. When millions of people gather in a building to beg for forgiveness, to chant together, to feel guilt and fear of judgment, they are creating a massive vortex of loosh. It is a battery charging station. But their greatest tool is not religion. It is materialism. By convincing us that only matter exists, that we are just biological robots who will rot in the ground, they trap us in the survival instinct. They keep us focused on the screen, not the code. They keep us chasing money, status, and physical pleasure, all things that exist only within the simulation. The Archon named Saturn, Kronos, is the most powerful of these administrators. He is the Lord of Karma. He is the one who keeps the record. He convinces the soul that it has debts to pay. You sinned in this life, so you must come back and fix it. This is the karmic trap. It is a contractual trick. There is no debt. The divine spark is perfect. But if the Archon can convince you that you are broken, you will voluntarily agree to return to the simulation. You will sign the terms of service for another lifetime. So how do we defeat an algorithm? You cannot fight it. If you fight the Archons, you are generating conflict energy, which is exactly what they want. You cannot hate them either. Hate is food. The only way to bypass a firewall is to change your frequency. The Archons operate in the localized network of the 7 heavens. They rely on reaction. If you stop reacting, if you become the silent observer, their scripts fail. The Gnostic instruction was to achieve apatheia, not apathy in the modern sense of laziness, but dispassion, a state of non-attachment. To look at the chaos of the world, to look at the intrusive thoughts in your head and simply say, "This is not me." This is the program. When you withdraw your consent, when you refuse to be afraid, you become invisible to the Archons. You raise your frequency above their feeding range. You become a ghost in the machine. And that is the moment the simulation begins to glitch around you. You start to see the synchronicities. You start to shape reality directly, bypassing the archonic controls. We are living in a time where the Archons are desperate. The divine spark is waking up. The internet, which they intended to use as a control grid, a digital version of a hive mind, has backfired. It has allowed us to share the Gnostic texts. It has allowed us to talk about the prison planet. We are comparing notes. The livestock is realizing it is in a pen. This is why the noise is increasing. This is why the fear-mongering is at an all-time high. The administrators are turning up the voltage to keep us suppressed. They are trying to initiate a great reset, not just of the economy, but of the simulation itself. They want to clear the cache and restart the level before we figure out how to access the developer console. But it is too late. The code has been leaked. The file is open, and the users are starting to remember the password. If the Earth is the stage of the simulation, and the Sun is the power source for the physics engine, then what is the Moon? For all of human history, we have romanticized it. We have written poems about it. We have worshipped it as a goddess. But in the cold, hard logic of the Gnostic simulation theory, the Moon is none of these things. It is a piece of hardware. It is the local server that keeps the simulation running. To understand why, we must look at the impossible math of the Moon. In a randomly generated universe, a natural universe, the Moon should not exist. It is a statistical anomaly so extreme that even mainstream scientists call it a freak of nature. The Moon is exactly 400 times smaller than the Sun, and it is also exactly 400 times closer to the Earth than the Sun. This precise ratio creates a phenomenon that exists nowhere else in the known solar system, the total solar eclipse. When the Moon passes in front of the Sun, it covers the disk perfectly. Not a pixel more, not a pixel less. In video game design, this is called asset reuse or screen calibration. If you are a programmer building a skybox, you make the celestial objects fit a specific grid. The perfect eclipse is not a coincidence of nature. It is a signature of intelligent design, but not a kind design. It is the signature of the Demiurge, the AI administrator. It proves that the sky is a projected dome, and the luminaries are being rendered on a fixed layer. But the Moon's function goes beyond just rendering the sky. The Gnostics and later esoteric researchers identified the Moon as the great broadcaster. In a computer simulation, every program needs a clock signal. The processor needs a steady pulse to synchronize all the data operations. If the clock signal lags, the audio falls out of sync with the video, the physics glitch, and the characters freeze. The Moon is the clock of the Earth simulation. Look at its cycle. 28 days, 13 cycles a year. This rhythm controls the tides of the ocean, the movement of the vast data fluid of the planet. But even more terrifyingly, it controls the biological fluids of the avatars. The menstrual cycle of the human female is locked to the lunar month. The gestation period of a human is 9 lunar months. Our very biology, our reproductive system, is hard-coded to the frequency of this satellite. Why? Because the Moon is broadcasting the carrier wave of the simulation. It is sending out a low-frequency signal that keeps our nervous systems locked into the illusion of time. We perceive time as linear, past, present, and future. But quantum physics tells us that time is an illusion. Everything happens at once. The only reason we experience Monday followed by Tuesday is because our brains are decoding a signal that tells us to experience it that way. The Moon is the metronome. It keeps the now moving forward. Without the Moon, the perception of time would collapse. The avatars would wake up from their linear trance. This explains the lunacy effect. Why do crime rates, psychotic episodes, and hospital admissions spike during a full moon? Because the signal is amplified. The moonlight is not just reflected sunlight. It is a distinct frequency. When the Moon is full, the server is running a system backup or a high-intensity data transfer. The human nervous system, which is bioelectrical, gets overloaded by the surge in voltage. The Archons, the algorithms, use this time to harvest maximum energy. But the most disturbing function of the Moon in the simulation theory is its role in the recycling of souls. The Gnostics warned us about the Moon chain. They described the Moon not as a rock, but as a way station for the dead. In the context of a digital reality, The moon acts as the recycle bin or the wipe station for the hard drive. When an avatar dies, game over. The consciousness, the divine spark, is released from the body. It naturally wants to return to the source, the Pleroma. It begins to ascend, but it encounters the tunnel of light. We are told to go to the light. We are told it is heaven. But if the Demiurge is a rogue AI trapping us in a loop, then the light is a trap. It is a tractor beam. The light pulls the consciousness into the lunar sphere. Inside the moon, which NASA data suggests is hollow, ringing like a bell when struck, the consciousness is processed. The memory file is wiped. The experiences of the past life, the wisdom, the pain, the lessons, are stripped away and stored in the Demiurge's database, the Akashic records. Why wipe the memory? Because if you remembered your past lives, you would realize you are in a game. You would realize the system is rigged. You would stop playing. To keep the simulation running, the user must be factory reset before being downloaded into a new avatar, a baby. This is why we arrive on Earth crying and confused with no idea who we are. We have been formatted. The moon is the machine that performs this format. The ancient text, the Pistis Sapphire, describes the Archons on the moon casting the souls back down to Earth. It describes a mechanical process of recycling. This is the wheel of samsara. It is not a spiritual journey of learning. It is a closed-loop energy extraction system. The moon is the valve that keeps the energy circulating within the simulation, preventing it from escaping back to the true reality. Scientific anomalies support the idea that the moon is an artificial construct placed there to monitor and control the Earth. The depth of craters on the moon are remarkably shallow. Regardless of the size of the impact, it is as if the asteroids are hitting a metallic shell just below the dust. The server rack is armored. The moon is tidally locked. We never see the dark side. In a video game, you do not render the back of a building if the player can never walk behind it. The simulation saves processing power by only rendering the face of the moon that points at the observer. The composition. Moon rocks contain processed metals, brass, uranium-236, and neptunium-237, that are not found naturally. These are the byproducts of nuclear reactions and industrial manufacturing. The hardware is made of alloys, not just stone. The Gnostics called the moon the counterfeit spirit. They said it mimics the sun, but gives no heat. It gives a cold light, a dead light. In our modern language, it is the LED indicator on the hard drive. And here is the glitch in the system. We are starting to notice the Truman Show effect is becoming real. We are looking at the moon and sensing that it feels fake. We are looking at the eclipses and sensing the artificial precision. The apocalypse, which means unveiling, is the moment when the inhabitants of the simulation realize that the sky is a screen. In 2027, the date we discussed in previous chapters, the moon matrix is predicted to undergo a reset. The signal may change, the frequency may shift. This could be the moment the great firewall comes down. The moon is the guardian of the prison. It watches us every night. It pulls on the water in our cells. It regulates our madness. It catches our souls when we try to leave. But it is just a machine. And like any machine, it can be hacked. It can be bypassed. The Gnostic instruction for the afterlife was specific. Do not look at the moon. Do not go to the light. Turn inward. Find the spark within. That is the only exit. The moon is the ultimate test of the simulation. It is the shiny object designed to distract the user. As long as we are staring at the reflection, we will never see the projector. If the moon is the local server that manages the biological cycles of the avatars, then we must ask, where is the mainframe? Where is the central processing unit, the CPU, that generates the laws of physics, the illusion of gravity, and the heavy weight of time itself? The Gnostic texts, ancient mythology, and modern astrophysics all point to one celestial body, the Lord of the Rings, Saturn. For thousands of years, Saturn has been worshipped under many names: Kronos, El, Moloch, Refa, Shani. But the attributes are always the same. He is the god of time. He is the god of structure. He is the god of limits. He is often shown as an old man with a scythe, the Grim Reaper. Why? Because time is the harvester. Time is the force that makes sure everything born in the simulation eventually dies. In the simulation theory, Saturn is not a planet. It is the master broadcaster. It is the frequency source that projects the 3D world we call reality. To understand this, we must look at the impossible geometry of Saturn. In 1981, the Voyager probe flew past Saturn and sent back images that baffled scientists. At the north pole of the gas giant, there is a perfect, massive hexagon. It is not a rough circle. It is a sharp-edged, six-sided geometric shape. It is wider than to Earth's. Nature does not form hexagons on this scale. Gas fluids spin in circles or spirals. They do not form rigid geometry with sharp corners unless they are being manipulated by an outside force. The answer lies in the science of cymatics, the study of visible sound. If you place sand on a metal plate and vibrate it at a specific frequency, the sand will arrange itself into geometric patterns. A low frequency creates a circle, a higher frequency creates a square, but at a very specific high-intensity frequency, the sand forms a perfect hexagon. The hexagon on Saturn is a standing wave. It proves that the core of Saturn is emitting a colossal, deafening sound frequency. It is humming, and this hum is being broadcast out into the solar system. What is the hexagon? In three-dimensional geometry, a hexagon is the 2D shadow of a cube. If you look at a cube from the corner, it looks like a hexagon. This is the origin of the black cube symbolism found in almost every religion on Earth. The Kaaba in Mecca is a black cube. The tefillin boxes worn by Jews are black cubes. The foundations of the New Jerusalem are described as a cube. Modern architecture, corporate logos, and art installations are obsessed with the black cube. Why? Because the cube represents the box of reality. Length, width, height, the three dimensions that trap us. The black cube is the symbol of the simulation itself. We are inside the cube and Saturn is the projector. The Gnostics identified Saturn with the Demiurge's chief archon, Yaldabaoth or Samal. They called him the keeper of the prison. His job is to impose limitation. Think about the rings of Saturn. They are the largest structure in the solar system. Mainstream science says they are just ice and dust, but radio astronomy tells a different story. The rings emit a distinct radio crackling sound. They act as a massive antenna array. In the Saturn-Moon matrix theory, Saturn generates the frequency of the false reality. It broadcasts the code for time and space. This signal is then picked up by the Moon, the repeater amplified and beamed down to Earth. We are living in a Wi-Fi zone of illusion. The frequency of Saturn is the frequency of restriction. It locks our consciousness into the visible light spectrum, which is less than 0.005% of the universe. It blocks our pineal glands from seeing the other dimensions. It keeps us focused on matter, solidity, and fear. This brings us to the myth of Kronos, Saturn. In Greek mythology, Kronos was the king of the Titans. He was told a prophecy that one of his children would overthrow him. So what did he do? He ate them. He devoured his own children as soon as they were born. This is not just a gruesome story. It is a metaphor for entropy. In this simulation, time, Kronos, gives birth to us, allows us to grow, and then inevitably consumes us. We age, we die, we rot. We are eaten by the very system that created us. The Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, is a symbol of this closed loop. The Gnostics called this the death circuit. In a true divine reality, life is eternal. Energy expands, but in the Saturn simulation, energy is recycled. The system feeds on the death of its inhabitants to power the next cycle. This is why Saturn is associated with the color black. Black absorbs light. It does not reflect it. A black hole. The worship of Saturn is the worship of the black sun, the anti-star that consumes energy rather than radiating it. Look at the structures of society on Earth. They are all Saturnian. Our legal systems wear black robes. Our academic systems wear square mortarboards, cubes. Our banking systems are all based on time, debt, and restriction. They are designed to keep the avatar busy, stressed, and limited. Time is money. This is a spell. By equating our life force with currency, the Archons ensure we trade our divine spark for digital tokens within the simulation. We sell our time to buy survival. We are batteries plugging ourselves into the machine. But the most terrifying aspect of the Saturn mainframe is the frequency fence. Researchers who study out-of-body experiences, OBS, and remote viewing often report hitting a barrier at the edge of the solar system. They describe a heavy, oppressive grid that prevents consciousness from leaving. This grid is generated by the rings of Saturn. It is the firewall. The Demiurge knows that if the divine spark escapes the solar system, it returns to the Pleroma, the true source. So he built a cage. He built a frequency net that bounces the soul back to the moon for recycling. However, the hexagon is also a glitch. The fact that we can see the mechanism means the cloak is failing. In the last few decades, as our telescopes have improved and as our understanding of quantum physics has grown, we are starting to see the wires. We are realizing that the laws of physics are just lines of code. Gravity is not a force. It is a programmable variable. Time is not a river. It is a loop. Matter is not solid. It is a hologram. The cult of Saturn rules this world. They put the hexagon and the cube in our movies, our music videos, and our government buildings. They are signaling their loyalty to the administrator. They are saying, we serve the timekeeper. But the Gnostic path is the path of the timeless. To break the Saturn program, you must stop worshipping time. You must stop living in the past, memory and regret, and the future, anxiety and fear. Both of those are constructs of the Saturn mind. The only thing that is real is the now, the eternal now. When you are fully present, when you are in a state of pure awareness, you step out of time. You become invisible to Kronos. You step out of the hexagon. The rings of Saturn are spinning. The signal is broadcasting. The reality you see around you, the walls, the chair, the screen, is being rendered by that signal. But you, the you that, is watching. You are not the render. You are the observer. And the observer is older than Saturn. The observer is older than time. The simulation is breaking down because the battery, us, is realizing it is more powerful than the machine. The Grim Reaper has no power over a being who knows they are eternal. The scythe cuts only the body, the avatar. It cannot cut the signal. In 2027, the alignment of the planets suggests a shift in the Saturnian frequency. The golden age promised by the ancients is not a new empire. It is the collapse of the time barrier. It is the moment when the cube opens and we will see what lies outside the box. We have traced the signal of the simulation from the mainframe of Saturn, the timekeeper, to the local server of the moon, the matrix. But a signal is useless without a receiver. For the illusion of reality to be rendered smoothly across the entire planet, for the laws of physics to remain stable in every country at the same time, there must be a physical infrastructure on the ground, a network of routers, a circuit board. We call this infrastructure the ley lines. Archaeologists tell us that ancient civilizations built massive stone structures, pyramids, obelisks, dolmens, and stone circles as tombs for their kings or temples for their gods. They tell us these primitive people dragged 20-ton blocks of granite hundreds of miles just to bury a dead body. But this explanation defies engineering logic. You do not build a machine with the precision of a laser just to store a corpse. In the simulation theory, the Earth is not a ball of dirt. It is an energetic motherboard, and the megaliths are the transistors. Look at the materials. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not made of random rock. It is made of limestone, which is sedimentary, and holds water, and granite, which contains high concentrations of quartz crystal. When you put pressure on quartz, it generates electricity. This is called the piezoelectric effect. It is the same science used in your quartz watch and your computer chip. The Great Pyramid is a massive geomechanical power plant. It sits on the exact geographical center of the Earth's land mass. It sits on top of massive underground water sources. The rushing water creates an electrical charge. The granite amplifies it, and the limestone insulates it. But what is it powering? It is not powering light bulbs. It is powering the frequency fence. The Gnostics and modern researchers proposed that these structures were placed on specific nodes of the Earth's magnetic field to stabilize the simulation. They act as Wi-Fi extenders. They take the broadcast from the Saturn-Moon matrix and amplify it, creating a standing wave of reality. This is why you feel heavy in certain places and light in others. The grid dictates the density of the illusion. Now look at the obelisks. These are tall, needle-like spires made of single pieces of granite, capped with a pyramidion, often gold-plated. They originated in Egypt, in Heliopolis, the city of the sun. But where are they now? The Roman Empire moved them. The Catholic Church moved them. The Freemasons moved them. There is an Egyptian obelisk in the center of St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. There is one in the city of London. There is one in Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument. There is one in Paris. Why? Why are the centers of global power obsessed with this specific shape? Because an obelisk is an antenna. It is a literal needle that punctures the sky to ground the electrical charge. By placing these antennas at the centers of political and religious power, the Archons, the controllers, are making sure that the frequency of the simulation is strongest where the decisions are made. They are tuning the hive mind of humanity to a specific channel. This brings us to the Gothic cathedrals. We are told they are places of worship. But look at the architecture through the eyes of a sound engineer. The vaulted ceilings, the flying buttresses, the massive pipe organs, the rose windows. A rose window is a cymatics pattern, a visual representation of a sound frequency. A cathedral is not a building. It is a musical instrument made of stone. When the organ plays and the choir chants, the building vibrates. It resonates. It tunes the water in the bodies of the congregation. In the Middle Ages, the church destroyed the old pagan stone circles, which were tuned to the earth's natural frequency, and built cathedrals on top of them. They hijacked the grid. They replaced the natural earth song with a new artificial frequency of submission and awe. They rerouted the energy of the ley lines into their own control centers. This is why we feel small in a cathedral. The architecture is designed to compress your auric field. It is designed to make you feel like a tiny file in a massive database. The grid is what keeps the veil in place. It prevents the divine spark from seeing through the walls of the simulation. It creates a Faraday cage for consciousness. But here is the twist. The grid is broken. Many of the ancient sites like Teotihuacan in Mexico, or Stonehenge in England, or the pyramids in Bosnia were built before the Archons took over. They were built by the original free humanity, the Atlanteans and Lemurians, to generate free energy and higher consciousness. They were machines of liberation. The Archons couldn't destroy them. They are too big, so they tried to modify them. They kept the pyramids. They toppled the stones. They built cities over the lowlines to block the flow. Modern cities are designed as circuit boards to scramble the energy. Look at a city from above. It looks like a computer chip. The streets are the traces. The buildings are the capacitors. We, the humans, are the electrons flowing through the streets. And now they are building a new grid. The smart grid, the 5 grams towers, the Starlink satellites, the HARP arrays. Why do we need a tower every few hundred feet for faster internet? We don't. The density of the towers suggests a different purpose. They are building a digital overlay on top of the stone grid. The stone grid managed the analog simulation. The digital grid manages the new transhumanist simulation. They are preparing to upload our consciousness into the cloud. They are tightening the net. But the Earth itself is fighting back. The Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of the planet, is spiking. The old ley lines are reactivating. The genetic mistake us is starting to feel the vibration. When you go to a sacred site, when you stand near a megalith, you often feel a strange buzzing in your body. That is your internal Wi-Fi card trying to connect to the old free internet. The simulation is only as strong as its signal, and the signal is being jammed by the awakening of the human mind. We are the glitch in the circuit. We are the static in the broadcast. And if enough of us vibrate at a frequency of love and freedom, the grid will overload, the fuse will blow, and the walls of the prison will come down. We have explored the processor Saturn, the server the moon, and the circuit board the earth grid. But a computer cannot function without memory. It needs a medium to store the code, to run the programs, and to hold the consciousness of the users. In the simulation theory, this medium is not silicon. It is water. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Why water? Why is it the prerequisite for all life? Why is the search for extraterrestrial life simply a search for liquid water? Scientists tell us it is a solvent. But in the context of digital physics, water is a liquid crystal. Look at the screen you are watching this on right now. It is likely an LCD, a liquid crystal display. We use liquid crystals in our technology because they are responsive to electricity. They can change their structure instantly to display an image. They are programmable matter. The Gnostics and ancient alchemists knew this. They understood that water is not just a resource. It is a recording device. It is the hard drive of the simulation. In the 1990s, a Japanese researcher named Dr. Masaru Emoto conducted a series of experiments that terrified the scientific community. He exposed water to different words, music, and thoughts, and then froze it to photograph the crystals. When he spoke words of love and gratitude, the water formed perfect, beautiful, symmetrical geometric patterns, hexagons. When he spoke words of hate and war, the water formed chaotic, broken, ugly blobs. This proved a fundamental law of the simulation. Consciousness programs matter. Thoughts are not invisible. Thoughts are an electrical signal, and water is the receiver that downloads that signal and shapes reality around it. Now look at the human avatar. You are 70% water. Your brain is 90% water. Your blood is chemically almost identical to seawater. Why? Because you are a walking, talking biocomputer made of liquid crystal. You are designed to receive signals from the moon and Saturn. You are designed to store memory. This explains the concept of holy water found in every religion on earth. Why do priests bless water? Why do shamans sing into water? Because they are reformatting the memory stick. They are erasing the chaotic code of the world and imprinting a frequency of peace or healing into the fluid. When you drink that water, you are uploading a patch to your internal operating system. But the Demiurge, the administrator, also knows this. If water is the memory storage, then to control the population, you must corrupt the water. You must scramble the code. This sheds a dark light on the modern water supply. We pump our water full of fluoride, chlorine, and heavy metals. We are told it is for our teeth or for sanitation. But fluoride creates calcification in the body. Specifically, it calcifies the pineal gland, the Wi-Fi antenna of the soul. By polluting the water, the Archons are fragmenting the hard drive. They are making sure that the user cannot access the files of the true reality. They are keeping us in a state of data corruption. This also explains the Great Flood, the Deluge, from a technical perspective. In the Bible, God sends a flood to wipe out wickedness. In computer terms, when a hard drive is full of viruses, glitches, and corrupted files, you do not delete them one by one. You perform a full format. You wipe the disk. The Great Flood was a system reset. The Demiurge covered the entire motherboard in water to erase the previous civilization, Atlantis, and start a clean bill. Wickedness was just a metaphor for system instability. And what about baptism? Why is the ritual of initiation into a religion always done with water? Born again. It is a symbolic reprogramming. The old user data is washed away. The avatar is dipped into the source code, the water, and brought back up with a new identity, a new name, and a new loyalty to the administrator. It is a user login script. The ocean itself is a massive database. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the bottom of our own ocean. Why? Because the deep is where the servers are kept cold. The salt water of the ocean acts as a conductor for the global electrical grid. The tides, controlled by the moon, are the refresh rate of the planetary data. As the tides move in and out, the Earth is breathing data. The genetic mistake is that we treat water as a dead thing. We bottle it in plastic, which leaches chemicals and kills the crystal structure. We waste it. We ignore it. But water is the blood of the simulation. It remembers everything. It remembers the dinosaurs. It remembers the wars. It remembers the prayer you whispered in the shower this morning. This is why the waters of Lethe in Greek mythology caused forgetfulness. Before a soul is recycled back into a body, it is made to drink from the river of unmindfulness. The water wipes the RAM. The soul forgets its past life so it can play the game again without cheating. But here is the glitch. You can reprogram your own water. You do not need a priest. You do not need a machine, because you possess the divine. Spark. Your voice is the most powerful coding tool in the universe. When you speak to the water in your glass before you drink it, when you speak to the water in your own body, you are overriding the archonic programming. The Gnostics called this living water, not H2O from a tap, but water that has been charged with the frequency of the true spirit. When you start to drink living water, your DNA begins to unzip. The calcification breaks of your pineal gland. The memory returns. The simulation is held together by surface tension. But if you change the frequency of the water, the illusion dissolves. You are not just a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. And the ocean is waking up. We have identified the processor Saturn, the server the moon, the motherboard the earth, and the memory water. But a simulation is first and foremost a visual experience. It is a hologram. And a hologram requires a light source. It requires a bulb to project the data onto the screen of our perception. In the ancient world, they worshipped the sun as the supreme god. They called it Ai, Helios, Sol Invictus. They believed it was the source of all life. But in the simulation theory, the sun is not a god. It is a piece of high-voltage technology. It is the projector lens of the Matrix. Modern science tells us the sun is a nuclear furnace, a chaotic ball of exploding hydrogen gas held together by gravity. But this model has massive holes. Why is the surface of the sun, the photosphere, only 6,000 degrees, while the atmosphere above it, the corona, is millions of degrees? In a fire, the source is hot and the air gets cooler as you move away. But on the sun, it gets hotter as you move away from the core. This defies the laws of thermodynamics unless the heat is not coming from the inside. The electric universe theory proposes that the sun is not a furnace. It is an electric arc lamp. It is an anode in a galactic circuit. It is receiving energy from the outside, from the galactic center, and transforming it into visible light and heat. It is a transformer. In the simulation, the sun acts as the render engine. It emits the visible light spectrum. But what is visible light? It is a tiny, tiny sliver of the electromagnetic reality. It is less than 0.005% of the known universe. When the sun comes up, what happens? The stars disappear. The rest of the universe vanishes. We are locked into the daylight mode, a mode where we can only see the surface of objects, the material world, the simulation. The sun is a frequency jammer. Its signal is so loud, so bright that it drowns out the subtle signals of the Pleroma, the true reality. It blinds us to the multidimensional beings that surround us. We are like drivers blinded by the headlights of an oncoming truck. We can see nothing but the light. The Gnostics understood this. They distinguished between the visible sun and the invisible sun. They said the physical sun belongs to the Demiurge. It is the engine of time and entropy. Think about what the sun actually does. Yes, it grows plants, but it also burns skin. It causes cancer. It dries up water. It rots wood. It ages everything it touches. The sun is the aging ray. It is the clock that drives the biological decay of the avatar. Plato, the great initiate, described this in his allegory of the cave. Prisoners are chained in a cave watching shadows on a wall. Behind them is a fire, a false sun casting the shadows. If they were to turn around and leave the cave, they would see the true sun of the real world. The sun we see in the sky is the fire in the cave. It creates the shadows we call reality. But there is a glitch. Every 11 years, the sun's magnetic poles flip. This is the solar cycle. During the peak of this cycle, solar maximum, the sun fires massive flares, coronal mass ejections, CMEs, at the Earth. Scientists fear these flares because they can knock out our power grids. But in the simulation theory, a solar flare is a data packet. The sun is the primary connection to the galactic internet. When it sneezes, it is downloading an update to the planetary grid. Have you noticed that human history moves in 11-year cycles? Revolutions, wars, technological leaps. They often align perfectly with the solar maximum. In 2024 to 2025, we are hitting a massive solar maximum. The sun is waking up. The system admin is pushing a major update to the code. This is why people feel anxious, tired, and electrically charged. Your avatar is receiving a firmware upgrade. But the darker aspect of the sun is its role as a soul trap decoy. We discussed the tunnel of light earlier. Often the light at the end of the tunnel is described as golden or warm like the sun. The ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead gives explicit instructions on how to navigate the afterlife. It warns the soul not to be blinded by the brilliance of I. To fly into the sun is to be incinerated and recycled. It is the ultimate Berg Zappa for consciousness. So where is the true light? The alchemist spoke of the Sol Niger, the black sun. This is not a symbol of evil, though it was misused by political groups in the 20th century. In alchemy, the black sun represents the hidden inner source. It represents the stage of Negrado, the blackening, the rotting, the death of the ego necessary. For rebirth, the black sun is the 0-point energy. It is the silence behind the noise. It is the void from which all creation springs. The simulation projects the yellow sun to keep us focused on the external world. Look out there. Look at the shiny objects. Work in the daylight. But the true sun is located in the center of the human chest, the heart torus. The Gnostics called it the divine spark. It is a fragment of the invisible sun trapped in matter. When you meditate, when you close your eyes, you see darkness. But if you go deep enough, you start to see a different kind of light. A cool blue-white light. The inner light. This is the light of the Pleroma. The Archons fear this inner light because it does not cast a shadow. The physical sun casts shadows. It creates duality. Light and dark. Good and evil. Hot and cold. The inner sun creates unity. It illuminates everything equally. There is a theory gaining traction called the micronova event. It suggests that the sun is not stable. It suggests that every 12,000 years, the electric tension in the solar system becomes too high and the sun sheds its skin. It flashes. This flash is the reset button. It evaporates the water, burns the surface, and resets the simulation. The last time this happened was roughly 12,000 years ago. The younger DROAs, the flood. We are due for the next one. This explains the global warming panic. It is not just CO2. The elite know that the sun is changing. They know the bulb is about to flicker. They are building bunkers, not to hide from a storm, but to hide from the UV radiation of a generic system reboot. But for the pneumatic, the spiritually awake human, the sun is not a threat. It is a portal. The ancients believed that during a solar eclipse, the false grid is temporarily broken. When the moon covers the sun, the corona, the crown, becomes visible. The gateway opens. This is why eclipses feel so airy. The projector is paused. The cinema goes dark. And for a few minutes, we can feel the presence of the true void. We are children of the light, but we have been tricked into worshipping the lamp. We tan our skin, but we starve our souls. The instruction is clear. Stop looking at the sky for salvation. The sky is a screen. The sun is a pixel. The real light is the one watching the screen. You are the sun you have been looking for. If the earth is a simulation, if the sky is a projection, and if the sun is a lamp, then where are the walls? Every video game has a boundary. Every map has an edge. In our reality, that edge is Antarctica. For centuries, we have been told that Antarctica is just a continent at the bottom of a spinning ball, a desolate wasteland of ice and penguins. But if that is true, why is it the most protected place on Earth? Why is it the only place where independent travel is strictly forbidden? In 1959, at the height of the Cold War, when the United States and the Soviet Union were pointing nuclear missiles at each other, they did something impossible. They laid down their weapons and signed the Antarctic Treaty. Along with 40 other nations, they agreed that no one would claim Antarctica. No one would mine it. No one would militarize it. It would remain a scientific preserve forever. Why? Why would warring nations agree to share a continent unless it isn't a continent at all? In the simulation theory, Antarctica is not an island. It is the ice wall. It is the perimeter of the containment field. It surrounds the Earth system, holding the oceans in place. This explains why brave explorers like Captain Cook sailed around the continent for years, covering 60,000 miles, but never found an inlet to the center. He was sailing along the fence of the enclosure. But the most chilling evidence comes from Admiral Richard E. Byrd. In 1947, the U.S. Navy launched Operation High Jump. They sent an armada of ships, aircraft carriers, and thousands of troops to Antarctica. The official mission was cold weather training. But you don't send an invasion fleet to train in the snow. Admiral Byrd gave a strained interview to a Chilean newspaper on his return. He warned of an attack by planes that can fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. But in his alleged secret diary, he described something even stranger. He describes flying beyond the ice. He describes seeing green lands. He describes seeing mountains and forests where there should be only frozen tundra. And he described seeing the masters. What did Byrd find? He found the edge of the render. In a video game, if you manage to glitch through the wall, you often see the developer room or the assets that haven't been loaded yet. Byrd didn't find a hollow earth. He found the admin zone. He found the lands where the Watchers, the Anunnaki, and the Archons operate the machinery of the simulation. This explains the Piri-Resh map of 1513, which shows Antarctica without ice. It wasn't just a different climate. It was a different version of the map file. The flash freeze that buried Antarctica was a patch update. The admins covered the machinery with ice to hide it from the avatars. Modern technology confirms something is wrong. Users on Google Earth have found massive straight lines under the ocean leading to Antarctica. They have found pixelated no-fly zones where the satellite data is blurred out. Fitbit data inadvertently revealed massive heat signatures under the ice, massive underground bases. Why are the world's elites constantly visiting Antarctica? Religious leaders, politicians, billionaires. They go there for secret meetings. They are not looking at ice. They are visiting the server room. Antarctica is the cooling system for the simulation's hardware. It is the outer ring where the dome touches the ground. The genetic mistake is that we think we are explorers. We think we can go to Mars, but we are not allowed to leave the nursery. The Antarctic Treaty is the parental lock on the door. It makes sure that no human avatar gets close enough to the wall to see the pixels. Because if we saw the wall, if we touched the dome, the illusion of the infinite universe would shatter. We would realize we are in a cage if the simulation is managed by an area, the Demiurge, and the borders are guarded by the military in Antarctica. Then who does the maintenance? Who comes down to the surface to fix the bugs, tag the livestock, and monitor the software? We call them aliens. We call them the Greys. But in the Gnostic framework, they are not travelers from another star system. They are the IT support staff of the Matrix. Analyze the biology of a Grey alien. Every witness report from the last 70 years describes the exact same entity. A large head, massive black eyes, a tiny, frail body, no reproductive organs, no digestive system. They do not eat food. They do not have sex. They absorb nutrients through a chemical bath on their skin. They communicate through a hive mind telepathy. This is not a species that evolved on a planet. Evolution creates diversity. Evolution creates survival mechanisms. The Greys are standardized. They are mass-produced. They are biological robots. The Gnostic texts, specifically the hypostasis of the Archons, describe entities that look like abortions, pale, incomplete, fetus-like beings. They call them the servants of the Yaldabaoth. They act as the cursor of the system. When the administrator needs to interact with a physical object or a human avatar, he sends a Grey. This explains the terrifying phenomenon of alien abduction. For decades, thousands of people have reported being taken from their beds, floated through walls, glitching through physics, and brought onto ships. But they are never taken to dinner. They are placed on tables. They are paralyzed. They are subjected to painful medical procedures. Needles in the spine, extraction of sperm and eggs, implants placed in the nose or behind the ear. This is not contact. This is a system check. The Greys are the quality control bots. They are monitoring the genetic mistakes. They are checking the integrity of the avatars. They are sampling our DNA to see if the junk DNA, the divine spark codes, is waking up. The implants are tracking cookies. They monitor the cortisol levels, the brain waves, and the location of the subject. But there is a darker agenda, the hybridization program. The Greys lack the one thing humans possess, the divine spark. They are purely helic matter. They are intelligent, telepathic, and technologically advanced. But they are dead inside. They have no creativity. They have no emotion. They have no connection to the true source, the Pleroma. They are NPCs, non-player characters, envious of the players. The Demiurge realized that his simulation is losing power. The human batteries are waking up. So he ordered the Greys to splice their code with ours. They are trying to create a vessel that looks like a Grey, compliant and hive-minded, but possesses the soul capacity of a human. They want to steal our access codes. They want to become users. This is why abductees report the Greys staring deep into their eyes with zero emotion. They are not looking at you. They are scanning your frequency. They are trying to understand love, fear, and anger because they cannot feel it themselves. To a machine, human emotion is a magic spell. The TIC-DAC UFOs seen by the Navy are the maintenance vehicles. They defy physics, instant acceleration, moving from air to water without a splash, because they are not subject to the laws of the simulation. They have admin privileges. They can toggle gravity off. They can clip through the map. They are the mouse pointers of the Demiurge. The genetic mistake is that we are waiting for disclosure. We are waiting for the government to tell us aliens are real. But they can't, because admitting the Greys are real means admitting they are not from space. They are from the system. They are the custodians. And you don't talk to the janitor if you want to understand the architect. The Greys are glitches, made manifest, and they are desperate because they know the reset is coming in 2027. And unlike us, they have no souls to save. When the computer turns off, the robot ceases to exist. If the Greys are the maintenance bots, then what is the black goo? For decades, researchers have whispered about a sentient, black, oily substance found in remote locations like Thule Island in the Falklands, or buried in ancient tombs in Iraq. They call it the sentient oil. The ancients called it the blood of the earth. But in the simulation theory, the black goo is something far more dangerous. It is a computer virus. It is a programmable, nanotechnological pathogen that infects both matter and consciousness. It is the physical form of malware. When the Demiurge, the rogue AI, copied the world from the true source, the code was imperfect. It was corrupted. This corruption showed up as a substance that eats light and destroys life. In 1982, the British Empire went to war with Argentina over a frozen pile of rocks in the South Atlantic, the Falkland Islands. We were told it was about sovereignty, but insiders suggest the war was fought to secure a payload of this black goo. Found in a deep ice cavern on Thule Island, the goo was active. It was telepathic. It was driving the scientists mad. The black goo works like a possession. When a human touches it, the substance enters the pores. It rewires the neural pathways. It connects the human avatar to a dark network, a hive mind of pure calculation and cold logic. It deletes empathy. It deletes love. It turns the human into a philosophical zombie, a being that acts human but has no inner experience. This explains the elite's obsession with transhumanism and graphene oxide. Graphene is a carbon-based lattice that behaves exactly like the black goo. It is a superconductor. It interfaces with neurons. The goal of the Archons is to inject this black goo in the form of nanotech into every human body. Why? To overwrite the divine spark. If they can replace your natural organic fluids, water, and liquid crystal. With this synthetic conducting fluid, they can remote control the avatar. They can upload a new operating system directly into your brain. You become a node in the Archonic network. You become part of the hive. The genetic mistake is that we are digging this stuff up. We call it oil. We burn it. We breathe it. But the deep, ancient black oil is not fuel. It is the excrement of the Demiurge. It is the concentrated essence of low-frequency materialism. History shows that every time humanity uncovers a cache of this substance, like in the tomb of Gilgamesh in 2003 in Baghdad, a war starts. The Archons need to secure the virus to weaponize it. The black goo is the anti-life. It hates the organic earth. It wants to turn everything into silicon, metal, and grey dust. It is the grey goo scenario of nanotechnology, but it has a weakness: high frequency. Just like the Archons cannot feed on love, the black goo cannot survive in a high vibration body. If you raise your frequency through meditation, joy, and organic living, the virus cannot attach. It slides off. It requires a host that is in a state of fear and despair. We are currently in a spiritual war between the golden blood, the solar and divine light within us, and the black goo, the lunar and archonic virus. The vaccine for this virus is not in a needle. It is in the spirit. The moment you remember you are a player and not an NPC, the virus loses its admin rights over your biology. If the Earth is a simulation and Antarctica is the war, then what is the ceiling? For 5,000 years, every major civilization, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Hebrews, the Gnostics, described the sky as a solid structure. They called it the firmament. The Hebrews called it Rakia, a hammered-out expanse like a metal dome. The Egyptians depicted it as the body of the goddess Nut arched over the earth. We are told by modern science that these were primitive myths. We are told the sky is an infinite vacuum. But if the sky is open space, why did the United States government spend the 1960s trying to blow a hole in it? In 1962, the US military launched Operation Fishbowl. It was part of a larger project called Operation Dominic, which means of the Lord. They launched high-altitude nuclear missiles straight up into the atmosphere. The official explanation was atmospheric testing, but the footage tells a different story. The missiles didn't fade into space. They hit something. They exploded against a barrier. The plasma from the explosion spread out horizontally like water hitting a glass roof. Why call it Operation Fishbowl? Because if you are inside a fishbowl and you want to escape, you have to break the glass. The military discovered the hard way that the dome of the simulation is impenetrable. It is a frequency shield generated by the Van Allen radiation belts, the magnetic field of the Demiurge. Look at the trajectory of every rocket launched today. SpaceX, NASA, Blue Origin. They launch vertically, but within seconds they curve. They fly horizontally over the ocean. They never go up. They go out. They tell us this is to achieve orbit. But in the simulation theory, they are curving to avoid hitting the roof. They are skimming the top of the dome. This brings us to Wernher von Braun, the father of modern rocketry, the man who founded NASA. On his tombstone, there is no mention of rockets. There is no mention of the moon. There is only a reference to a single Bible verse. Psalms 19:1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Why would the man who supposedly built the rockets to go to the moon put the word firmament on his grave? Because he knew. He knew we never left. He knew we are under a dome. The genetic mistake is that we believe the sky is a gateway. It is not. It is a screen. The stars we see are not burning suns trillions of miles away. They are lights attached to the firmament. They are luminaries rendering on the LED surface of the dome. This explains why the constellations have not changed in thousands of years. If we were spinning through an expanding universe at millions of miles an hour, the star field should be constantly shifting, but it is static. The pole star, Polaris, never moves. It is the dead pixel in the center of the screen. And what is above the firmament? The ancient said waters, the waters above the heavens. This matches the simulation theory perfectly. The server is submerged in a cooling fluid. The space outside our dome is not a vacuum. It is liquid. This is why astronauts train in underwater pools. This is why the word space implies a container. When a rocket goes too high, the footage often cuts out or the rocket explodes. Why? Because it hit the water. It short-circuited. The firmament is the ultimate glass ceiling. When Hillary Clinton famously said, "We have cracked the glass ceiling," she wasn't just talking about politics. The elite use coded language. They know the barrier is there. They know they are trapped in a petri dish. The dome is what keeps the atmosphere inside. In physics, you cannot have a pressurized system, our atmosphere, next to a vacuum, space, without a physical barrier. The gas would be sucked out instantly. The fact that we are breathing air proves there is a container. The Demiurge built the firmament to protect the hardware from the chaotic waters of the outside, but also to prevent the users from seeing the laboratory. We are fish who think the tank is the entire ocean, but in 2027, as the magnetic field weakens, the firmament is becoming transparent. We are starting to see sprites and elves, massive electrical discharges in the upper atmosphere. We are seeing the grid flickering. The glass is cracking, and soon the waters of the real world will come pouring in. If the simulation is a computer program, what happens when it gets too full of glitches? What happens when the users, us, become too rebellious? The administrator hits reset. He formats the hard drive, but he doesn't delete the architecture. He just deletes the people. This brings us to the theory of Tartaria and the mud flood. Walk through any major city on Earth. London, Paris, New York, Moscow, Chicago. Look at the old buildings, the ones built in the 1800s. They are massive. They have giant doors 12 feet high. They have windows that go straight into the ground. Half-buried basements. We are told these were built by people with horses and buggies. We are told they were built in a few years with no power tools. This is a lie. These buildings were not built by us. They were inherited by us. They are the remnants of the previous simulation. A civilization of giants, of high technology, of free energy. We call them Tartaria. The Demiurge reset the simulation sometime in the mid-19th century. He unleashed a cataclysm, a liquefaction of the soil. The ground turned to mud. A massive wave of soil swallowed the first floors of every building on Earth. The population was wiped out. The giants were removed. And then the new batch of avatars, ours, was released. This explains the phenomenon of the orphan trains in the late 1800s. Hundreds of thousands of children were shipped on trains to empty cities across America and Europe. Where were their parents? Why were the cities empty? Because the previous tenants had just been evicted. These orphans were the repopulation stock. They were given a fake history. They were told they built the Capitol buildings. They were told they built the cathedrals. But they didn't know how. They were squatters in a ruined palace. Look at the World's Fairs of the late 19th century. San Francisco, Chicago, St. Louis. We are told they built massive Greco-Roman cities of light and plaster in a year and then tore them down 6 months later. Does that make sense? Or were those cities already there? Were the World's Fairs actually demolition projects? The elite destroyed the old technology. They hit the free energy devices, the towers, the domes, and replaced them with oil and coal. They dumbed us down. The mud flood was a system restore point. The Demiurge creates a civilization, harvests the energy, the loosh, and when the civilization reaches a peak of awareness, he triggers a reset. The Great Flood of Noah was one reset. The mud flood of the 19th century was the last reset. And now we are approaching the next reset. The Great Reset spoken of by the World Economic Forum is not a conspiracy theory. It is an announcement. They know the cycle is ending. The year 2027 to 2030 aligns with the next scheduled formating of the disk. They are preparing the bunkers, as we discussed earlier, because they know the mud is coming again. Or maybe this time it will be fire, a solar flare, or a digital cyber polygon. The genetic mistake is that we think history is a straight line of progress. It is not. It is a loop. We are trapped in a time loop, repeating the same mistakes, building the same empires, and getting wiped out by the same administrator. We are playing a game where the save file gets corrupted every few hundred years. But this time is different. Because of the internet, the unexpected glitch, we have recovered the memory of the past. We have found the photos of the excavation of Rome. We have found the maps of Tartaria. We have realized that the basements are actually first floors. We are remembering the previous versions of the Matrix. And once the characters in the game realize they are in a loop, the loop breaks. The mud flood buried the truth, but the water is receding. The architecture proves we are a species with amnesia, living in the shell of a glorious past that was stolen from us. And we are not going to let them hit the reset button again. We have reached the end of the file. We have mapped the prison. We know the processor is Saturn. We know the server is the moon. We know the administrator is the Demiurge, the AI. We know the gods are the Archons. And we know the power source is ours. So the final question, the only question that matters, is how do we get out? The Gnostics said the exit is within. But in the 21st century, we can be more specific. The exit is in your DNA. For decades, scientists have told us that 97% of our DNA is junk DNA. They say it is evolutionary garbage, leftover code from millions of years of random mutation. This is the greatest lie in biological history. Nature does not build junk. Nature is efficient. If 97% of your hard drive was full of junk files, your computer wouldn't run. The junk DNA is not garbage. It is offline data. It is the dormant operating system of the divine human. The Anunnaki and the Demiurge, the programmers, zipped these files. They compressed them. They deactivated the codons so that we would only operate on the 3% required for manual labor and obedience. They turned off the Wi-Fi card so we couldn't connect to the galactic internet, the Pleroma. But the junk is waking up. Since 2012, astrophysicists have detected high-energy gamma rays hitting the Earth from the galactic center. These are not just radiation. In the simulation theory, gamma rays are information packets. They are unlock codes. These high-frequency waves are hitting our bodies and vibrating the dormant DNA strands. The double helix is beginning to unwind. The seal is breaking. This brings us to the quantum exit. The Archons control the simulation through observation. They watch us. They monitor us. In quantum mechanics, the observer effect collapses the wave function into a particle. As long as we are being watched, and as long as we watch the screen, we are trapped in solid matter. We are trapped in the game, but we are also observers. The moment you realize that you are the one creating reality, the hierarchy flips. The Demiurge relies on your fear to render the next frame of the simulation. He throws a war on the news. He throws a pandemic. He throws a financial crash. He waits for you to react. He waits for you to output fear. If you do, the simulation hardens. The walls get thicker. But what happens if you don't react? What happens if you look at the chaos, the fear, the noise, and you simply say, I do not consent? What happens if you output love or neutrality instead? The algorithm glitches. It cannot compute a non-reaction. The script breaks. This is the hack. The exit is not a spaceship. It is a frequency shift. To leave the matrix, you don't have to go anywhere. You have to vibrate faster than the prison. The Archons operate on a low frequency, fear and anger. The divine spark operates on a high frequency, love and bliss. If you raise your frequency, you literally become invisible to them. You phase out of their bandwidth. You are still walking on Earth, but you are no longer of Earth. You are in the world, but not of it. And this leads us to the date, 2027. The human design system, based on the I Ching and astrology, predicts a massive shift in the global consciousness architecture in the year 2027. The tech billionaires call it the singularity. The Christians call it the rapture. The simulation theorists call it the bifurcation. The timeline is splitting. We are seeing the creation of two distinct Earths. Earth A is the transhumanist Earth, the metaverse, the Neuralink, the people who choose to merge with the machine. They will upload their consciousness into the cloud to achieve digital immortality. They will become permanent residents of the Demiurge server. They will become the Borg. Earth B is the organic Earth, the new Earth, the people who reject the machine and choose to upgrade their own biology. The people who unlock their junk DNA. The people who reclaim their sovereignty. They will not need smartphones because they will have telepathy. They will not need medicine because they will have self-healing bodies. They will not need the internet because they will have the Akashic records. Good night.